The marketplace was loud with voices, colors, and smells, yet the human sat alone at the edge of the crowd. He was a traveler, moving from world to world, searching for nothing but rest and silence. But that silence broke when a tiny alien girl ran toward him, her small feet stumbling on the dusty ground. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with fear, and her voice cracked as she cried, "Please, human, my sister has been taken." The human blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. The crowd of aliens around them ignored her, turning their backs, pretending not to hear. The little one's voice grew sharper, desperate. "Fight beside me, please, I beg you." He saw the way her hands shook, her thin arms clutching at his sleeve. Her clothes were torn, her knees scraped as if she had fallen many times before finding him. Tears cut tracks down her dusty face, yet her eyes were filled with fire. It was not just fear, it was determination. The human leaned closer, speaking gently. "Who took her, little one?" Her lips trembled as she answered, "Raiders, dark ones. They stormed our home. They bound her and dragged her away into the forest." The market remained busy. Creatures, laughing and trading, but not a single one stepped forward to help. It was as if the girl was invisible to all except the human. He felt anger rise in his chest, not just at the raiders, but at the coldness of those who stood by. Why should he care, he asked himself. This was not his world, not his people. And, yet looking at her trembling form, he knew he could not walk away. "Why come to me?" he asked, his voice low. She looked at him as though the answer was simple. "Because you are human, because they say humans fight even when hope is gone." Her words struck him like a blade, for he had once fought, and once lost too much. But here was a chance, maybe, to stand for something again. The girl tugged at his arm. "Please, there is still time. I can hear her voice when the wind is quiet. She calls for me." Her voice cracked at the last words, and she lowered her head, whispering, "I cannot save her alone." The human stood slowly, taller than the alien crowd around them. He adjusted the strap of the worn pack on his shoulder, his eyes fixed on the dark horizon beyond the market stalls. The girl looked up at him with both hope and fear, waiting for his answer. Finally, he nodded. "Show me the way." Her breath caught, a sound between a sob and a gasp, and her small hand slipped into his. Together they stepped away from the marketplace, leaving behind the noise, the laughter, and the uncaring faces. The path beyond was silent, only the sound of their steps on broken stones. The girl walked quickly, pulling him forward, her voice shaking as she spoke. "They will hurt her, I know it. The raiders do not keep prisoners alive for long." The human tightened his grip. "Then we must be faster." Shadows stretched across the land as the sun sank low, painting the sky with blood-red light. The human felt the weight of danger in every step, yet he also felt something else. The small hand holding his reminded him why he had chosen to move forward, behind them. The marketplace went on as if nothing had happened. Before them the unknown waited, filled with traps, enemies, and a sister's fading cries. But one truth became clear in that moment. The human had been chosen not by fate, not by chance, but by the desperate courage of a tiny alien girl, and he would not let her down. As the forest loomed ahead, a sharp cry echoed faintly through the trees. The girl froze, her ears twitching, her eyes wide with terror. "That is her," she whispered, voice breaking. "That is my sister's voice." The human drew a slow breath, his muscles tense. His heart steady, whatever waited ahead, he knew they would face it together. And in the silence that followed, the promise of battle and rescue was sealed. The path out of the marketplace grew narrow, stones cracked underfoot, and the air grew colder with each step. The human walked beside the small alien girl, her hand still gripping his tightly, as if she feared he might vanish if she let go. The lights and noise of the market faded behind them, swallowed by the darkness of the forest ahead. He glanced down at her, noticing how her ears twitched at every sound, her eyes wide, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her small body moved fast, almost running, but he knew it was fear that gave her speed, not strength. "Slow down," he said softly. We must keep our strength. She shook her head quickly. No, if we wait, it will be too late. The forest seemed alive, trees taller than towers bent toward them, their twisted roots rising, like claws from the earth. Every step made a crunch of leaves, and with every sound the girl flinched, looking over her shoulder. The human's hand moved to the blade at his side, old but sharp, a weapon that had saved his life more than once. He knew eyes were watching, unseen but close. The girl whispered, "Do you hear them?" He listened carefully, his ears catching faint rustles, a strange clicking sound carried on the wind. "Yes," he replied, "but do not fear. We will face them together." Her shoulders shook, but she nodded, drawing courage from his words. They moved deeper, following the faint trail left behind by the raiders, broken branches, trampled soil. Even a torn piece of cloth caught on a thorn. Each sign told them they were on the right path, yet with every step, danger seemed to thicken around them like smoke. The human felt it in his bones, the stillness, the quiet between the sounds. The forest was too silent, as if it waited for something to happen. The girl noticed it too, her hand gripping his harder, her breath quick and shallow. "Why, do they hide here?" she whispered. "Why would they bring her into such cursed ground?" The human looked ahead. The darkness between the trees seemed endless. "Because this is where no one dares to follow," he said firmly. "But we are not like the others." She turned her face up to him, fear mixed with hope. "You mean, we will not stop?" He gave a single nod. "Not until your sister is safe." As the night deepened, a strange mist rose from the ground, curling around their legs like cold hands. The girl stumbled once, and he caught her, lifting her to her feet. Her voice broke. "I am not strong enough." The human's voice was calm. "Then lean on me, I will carry the weight." The forest began to whisper, or so it seemed, strange voices carried in the fog. The girl pressed close to him, her small frame trembling. "They are calling. Can you hear it?" He could, though faint, like voices that were not alive. "Do not listen," he told her. "They want to break your spirit. We must keep moving." Step by step they pressed forward, their shadows stretching long in the pale light of the moons above. The human thought of the sister chained and waiting, her cries faint on the wind. Every delay, every pause, was another moment she suffered. He clenched his jaw, forcing his feet to move faster. Suddenly, a branch snapped to their left, then another to their right. Shapes moved between the trees, swift and silent. The girl gasped, "They are here!" The human pulled her behind him, blade in hand, his eyes sharp. The forest grew alive with rustles and shifting shadows, but no one stepped forward. It was a test, a warning. The raiders were watching, letting them know the hunt had begun. The girl's breath shook, but she whispered, "They want us to turn back." The human's voice was steady, "And that is why we will go forward." With that, they pressed deeper into the unknown, the path twisting like a serpent, the mist swallowing the last light of the sky. The girl clung to him, her small steps matching his steady stride. Though fear filled her, the warmth of his hand and the strength in his voice gave her the courage to keep walking. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to close in, but with every shadow, every whisper, the girl's plea echoed again in the human's heart. Her sister's voice still cried for help, faint but alive, and he swore to himself that no force in this cursed land would stop him from reaching her. The night stretched long, the forest darker, but the human's resolve only grew brighter. For the first time, the girl dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had not chosen the wrong ally. The human's steps did not falter, his blade glinted in the pale light, and together they moved further into the unknown, where destiny and danger waited side by side. The mist clung to the ground as they pressed deeper into the forest, each step heavier than the last. The human kept his blade ready, scanning the trees, while the little alien girl's sharp eyes searched the shadows for signs of her sister. The silence between them was broken only by their footsteps and the distant cry of unseen creatures. Suddenly the girl knelt by a bush, her small hands brushing aside leaves. She picked up a torn piece of cloth, stained with dirt and blood. Her breath caught. "This is hers," she whispered, clutching it to her chest. The human studied the fabric, its edges ripped roughly as if torn during a struggle. He looked at the girl, his voice low but firm. She is still alive, but we must hurry. The trail grew clearer the deeper they went. Branches snapped, footprints pressed deep into the soil. The girl pointed at claw-like marks on a tree, carved by weapons dragged across its bark. "The raiders leave their sign," she whispered, fear lacing her words. The human frowned. "They want others to fear following, but it only makes their path easier to track." They walked in silence, every sign drawing them closer, yet also closer to danger. At one point they found a broken spear, its shaft split in half, its tip stained with something dark. The girl's hands shook as she picked it up. "This is from their kind. I know it. I have seen them before." The human placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. "Do not fear the weapon. Fear the hand that holds it, and we will take that hand down." The forest began to change as they followed the trail. The trees twisted tighter together, their roots rising like walls. The air grew heavier, filled with the stench of ash and rot. The girl covered her nose, whispering, "This smell, it belongs to their camps. They burn everything they cannot carry." The human's jaw tightened. "Then we are close." They moved carefully now, slower, listening for every sound. A low growl echoed through the air, but when they turned, nothing was there. The girl pressed close to him, whispering, "The forest does not want us here." He gave a grim nod. "Neither do the raiders, but we came anyway." At last, the trail led them to the edge of a canyon, wide and deep, its walls jagged like teeth. The girl gasped, clutching his arm. "No one goes down there, not even the bravest. It is cursed ground." The human looked across the gap, and there, faint in the dirt, was a trail of footprints leading down into the shadows. "The raiders do," he said firmly, "and that is where they took your sister." The girl's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling. "Then she is lost. No one who enters returns." The human knelt before her, looking into her glowing eyes, his voice steady and strong. "You came to me because you believed a human would not give up. Do not lose that faith now. Your sister waits for us below, and I will not leave her." Her lip quivered, but she nodded, gripping his hand tightly once more. Together they began the descent into the canyon, the rocks loose and sharp under their feet. The girl stumbled, but the human lifted her easily, carrying her when the ground became too steep. The deeper they went, the colder the air grew, until even their breath turned white. Strange carvings lined the canyon walls, symbols of the raiders, twisted shapes that looked half like beasts, half like screams frozen in stone. The girl shivered. "These are warnings. They mark this place as theirs." The human traced one with his fingers, then drew his blade. "Then let them know we do not fear." At the bottom of the canyon, the trail became even clearer. Footprints pressed deep, bones scattered where careless hands had left them. The girl stopped suddenly, her ears twitching. "Listen," she whispered. The human froze, and in the silence a faint sound reached them. A cry, weak but real, carried by the wind. The girl's eyes widened with hope. "That is her. It is my sister's voice." The human tightened his grip on the blade, his voice calm. "Then we are not too late." But his eyes scanned the darkness ahead, where shadows shifted unnaturally. The girl followed his gaze, whispering, "They know we are here." The canyon seemed to breathe around them, every rock echoing with strange noises. The human stepped forward, his body tense, his heart steady. The girl clung to his side, her courage flickering like a flame in the wind. Every step now was not just a chase, it was a walk into the very heart of the raiders' lair, and though fear pressed heavy on both of them, the human carried something greater, a promise made to a desperate child and a vow not to leave her sister behind. The trail had led them into the cursed ground, but it was far from the end. It was only the beginning of the real danger that waited in the dark. The canyon floor grew darker as they moved forward, shadows stretching long and heavy across the rocky path. The human walked carefully, his blade in hand, while the small alien girl clung to his side, her glowing eyes darting left and right. Every step felt dangerous, every sound echoed too loudly. It was not only the raiders they feared now, it was the canyon itself. The first trap came suddenly, hidden under loose stones. A rope snapped, and sharp spikes shot upward from the ground, narrowly missing the girl. She screamed, stumbling back, but the human pulled her to safety, his grip strong and sure. The spikes glistened with dark poison, meant to kill with even the smallest scratch. The girl shivered. They are waiting for us. They know we are here. The human's eyes narrowed. Then we will step where they least expect. They moved slower now, every step tested before it landed. The human scanned the ground, the walls, even the air. Twice more he saved her, once from a falling net of weighted chains, another from a thin wire that, if broken, would have sent blades swinging down from above. Each time her heart raced, her breath short, but his calm presence gave her strength to continue. The girl whispered, "Why do they lay so many traps?" The human answered softly, "Because they fear being hunted, and fear makes them cruel." Her eyes lowered, "And we are the hunters now." He looked at her, his voice firm. "No, we are rescuers, and rescuers must be braver than hunters." As they pressed on, the canyon grew narrower, walls pressing close until only one person could pass at a time. The human went first, his hand steady, guiding her behind him. The ground was uneven, jagged stones cutting their boots, and the air smelled of smoke and iron. The girl flinched as whispers echoed again, not from her mind this time but from ahead, real voices, cruel and mocking. She tugged at his arm, whispering, "Raiders, they are close." The human raised a hand for silence, his eyes scanning the walls. He saw movement, shadows sliding across stone, figures watching them from above. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark, cruel and hungry. The girl's breath caught. "They see us," the human whispered. "Then let them see. But we will not falter." A sudden snap of rope broke the silence, and the ground beneath them gave way. The girl screamed as the earth fell, but the human caught her, pulling her back as a pit of sharpened bones opened where she had stood. She clung to him, trembling. "I would have fallen, I would be gone." He lifted her chin gently, his voice strong. "Not while I am here, not while we still breathe." They pressed forward, step after careful step, and finally the canyon opened into a wide clearing. Torches burned in the distance, casting flickering light on jagged rocks. The girl gasped, pointing, "Look, do you see it?" The human followed her gaze, and there it was. A faint glimmer of chains in the firelight, a figure small and weak. Bound to a post, her voice cracked with emotion. "It is her, my sister." But even as hope surged, danger revealed itself. The torches were not abandoned. They were placed to lure them forward. From the shadows, the laughter of raiders echoed, deep and cruel. Shapes moved between the rocks, circling like predators. The girl pressed against the human's side, her heart pounding. "They are here. They are watching us." He held his blade tighter, his eyes sharp. "They want us to step into their trap. They want us to break, but we will not." The raiders' whispers grew louder, their mocking voices carrying through the clearing. One shouted, "The little one has come to save her sister, and she brings a human toy." Laughter followed, echoing like thunder. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but the human spoke firmly. "Do not listen. They wish to weaken your spirit." The air grew thick with tension, every shadow hiding an enemy, every torch a warning. The human could feel the trap closing around them, yet he stood tall. The girl wiped her tears, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "We cannot turn back, not now." He gave a nod. "No, not now, not ever." As they stepped closer to the clearing, the ground shifted again, ropes snapped, and more traps sprung to life. Arrows shot from the walls, spears launched from hidden holes. But the human moved with sharp reflexes, cutting some down, dodging others, pulling the girl into cover. The laughter of the raiders grew louder, circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The girl looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "How can we fight them all?" He met her gaze, his tone steady. "By remembering why we fight, not for victory, not for pride, but for her." She followed his eyes to the faint shape of her sister in the distance, chained and unmoving. Her heart hardened, her fear shifting into fierce resolve. The human stood tall, blade gleaming in the firelight. The traps had not broken them. The shadows had not stopped them, but the true battle had not yet begun. The raiders were waiting, and soon they would strike. The clearing opened wider as they stepped past the last trap. Torches burned high, throwing jagged shadows across stone walls, and in the center of the ground, chained to a post, was the girl's sister. Her small body slumped forward, weak but alive, her wrists bound by heavy iron. The little alien girl gasped, rushing a step forward, but the human held her back. "Wait," he whispered, his eyes sharp. "This is no rescue ground. This is their lair." Her heart pounded, tears in her eyes. "But she is there. I can see her, I can hear her cry." The human tightened his grip on her hand. "And that is why we must move wisely, for if we fall, she will be lost too." From the shadows, figures moved, raiders stepping into the light. Their bodies tall, their faces marked with cruel scars, their weapons sharp and dripping with poison. Their laughter echoed, cruel and heavy. One of them called out, "Look at this. The little one returns with a human at her side. Did she think that would save her?" Another answered, "No, it will only make her suffering longer." The girl trembled but raised her chin, her small voice shaking yet strong. "Give her back. Give my sister back." The raiders laughed again, mocking her. The human's hand rested on his blade, his voice calm but cold. "Enough." The raiders began to circle, their eyes glowing in the firelight. They were many, more than 10, moving with slow confidence, like predators playing with prey. The girl's breath came quick. "We cannot face them all." The human's eyes never left the enemies. "We do not need to fight them all, only the ones who stand in our way." He guided her behind a large stone, lowering his voice. "Listen to me when I fight. You must go to your sister, break her chains if you can, and free her." Her eyes widened with fear. "No, I cannot leave you alone." He gave a faint smile, though his eyes were steel. "I will not be alone, for your courage will fight with me." The girl swallowed hard, tears glistening, but she nodded. Together they looked at the chained figure again, her sister's faint movements proving she still clung to life. The human whispered, "When I move, you move too. Do not look back." Suddenly, a drumbeat echoed through the canyon, deep and booming. From the largest cave at the far end of the clearing stepped the raider chief. He was taller than the rest, his armor made of bone and iron, his eyes burning like embers. The girl gasped, clutching the human's arm. "That is him, the one who took her." The chief raised a jagged blade high, his voice thunderous. "So a human dares to walk into my lair, and a child dares to defy me." The raiders roared with laughter, slamming their weapons against the ground. The sound shook the air, and the girl felt her courage falter. But the human stepped forward, tall and unshaken, his voice steady as stone. "She is not yours. None of this is yours. Tonight you will learn what a human's will can do." The raider chief snarled, his voice like a growl. "Then come, show me." The human drew his blade, its metal catching the firelight. The girl's heart raced as she watched him stand against so many, one man before an army. For a moment, doubt filled her, but then she remembered his promise, his vow that he would not let her down. The chief gave a signal and the raiders moved, weapons raised, circling closer, the human's muscles tensed, ready for the strike. He glanced back at the girl, whispering one last time, "Go now." She ran, her small feet light on the ground, weaving between shadows, her eyes locked on her sister's chained form. Behind her, the sound of metal clashing against metal erupted as the human met the first wave of raiders. The clash shook the clearing, sparks flying, voices shouting. But she did not turn. She could not turn. She reached her sister, her breath breaking as she fell to her knees beside her. The chains were thick, far too strong for her small hands. Tears filled her eyes. "Sister, I am here. I came back." The weak girl lifted her head, her lips trembling, whispering, "You should not have come, they will kill you." The younger one shook her head fiercely. "No, he will not let them," he promised. Behind them, the human fought fiercely, each strike of his blade echoing like thunder. The raiders were stronger, faster, but he fought with purpose, with rage and resolve. Every movement was a shield, every strike a vow to protect. Still, the numbers pressed hard, and the laughter of the chief rolled through the clearing. The girl pulled at the chains with all her strength, her fingers bleeding, her cries echoing. "Hold on, I will free you, just hold on." Her sister's eyes filled with tears, watching the human fight. "Why would a human fight for us?" The younger one's voice broke but held strong. "Because he is not like them, because he is hope." The raider chief raised his blade, stepping closer to join the fight, his voice booming. "This ends now. Human, your courage dies here." But the human lifted his head, his voice cutting through the fire and noise. "No, it begins here." The sound of clashing steel filled the clearing, each strike echoing against the canyon walls like thunder. The human stood firm, blade flashing in the firelight, his body moving with sharp strength, each swing cutting down the raiders who charged. But for every one that fell, another came forward, their cruel laughter replaced by growls of frustration. The little alien girl clung to her sister, pulling desperately at the chains, her small fingers bleeding. She cried, "Hold on, he is fighting for us, just hold on." Her sister lifted her head weakly, her eyes wide with fear and awe. The human fought like a storm, his blade ringing, his body unbroken, but the raiders pressed harder, surrounding him in a circle of blades. The chief stepped closer, his heavy footsteps shaking the ground. His voice roared, "You fight well, human, but you cannot stand against all of us." The human turned, his chest heaving, his eyes burning with resolve. "I need not fight them all, only you." The chief's laughter boomed, dark and cruel. "Then come face me, and I will show your little friend what happens when hope is crushed." The raiders parted, leaving space as the chief raised his jagged blade. The human's grip tightened on his sword, his body aching but steady. He stepped forward, the firelight flickering across his face. Behind him, the girl shouted, "Be careful, please." He gave a faint nod, then charged. Steel met steel with a sound like a scream, sparks flying as the human's blade clashed against the chief's heavier weapon. The force nearly knocked him back, but he held firm, pushing forward with a cry. The chief grinned, slamming his strength against the human again, forcing him to stumble. The girl gasped, her heart breaking. "No, do not fall." The fight raged, each strike louder than the last. The chief swung with crushing power, his blade slicing the air, but the human ducked low, striking back with sharp precision. A cut opened across the chief's arm, dark blood spilling, and the raiders roared in anger, but the human stood tall, his voice steady. "She is not yours. None of this is yours." The chief snarled, his face twisted with fury. "You will die here, and both sisters will watch you fall." He struck again, harder, faster, each blow rattling the human's bones. Still, the human fought back, his blade finding openings, his body refusing to break. Every strike was more than survival, it was a promise. The girl pulled harder at the chains, her tears falling, her voice desperate. "Please, break, break, I beg you." Her sister's voice was weak but steady. "Believe in him. Believe in what he fights for." The younger one nodded fiercely, her heart filled with fire. "I do. I will never give up." The battle grew brutal, both fighters bloodied, both refusing to fall. The human's arm ached, his breath heavy, yet his eyes never lost their fire. The chief roared, swinging in a wide arc meant to end the fight. The human caught the blow, steel grinding against steel, his legs buckling but holding. With a cry, he twisted, pushing the chief back, his blade slashing across the raider's chest. The chief staggered, rage in his eyes. But before he could strike again, the human shouted, "Now!" The little girl grabbed a sharp stone from the ground, smashing it against the chain, again and again. Finally, the link cracked, snapping apart. Her sister fell forward into her arms, sobbing, "You came back for me." The younger girl hugged her tightly. "I promised, and he promised too." The chief saw them, his roar shaking the air. "No, they do not leave this place alive." He raised his weapon high, charging with fury. But the human stepped between him and the sisters, his body a wall of steel. Blood dripped from his arm, his face bruised, but his stance unbroken. His voice thundered, "If they live, then I have already won." The final clash came with a scream. Of steel and fire, the chief swung down with all his might, but the human met the blow, twisting his blade, forcing the jagged weapon aside. With a cry, he drove his sword deep into the raider's chest. The chief's roar turned into a choking gasp, his eyes wide with disbelief. The raiders around them froze, their leader falling to his knees, then collapsing into the dirt. The clearing fell silent, only the sound of the sisters' sobs and the human's heavy breathing filling the air. The raiders hissed in anger but did not move, fear shining in their eyes as their chief lay broken. The human stood tall, bloodied but victorious, his blade still gleaming in the firelight. He looked back at the sisters, his voice steady. "You are free now." The little girl held her sister close, her tears turning to relief. She whispered, "I knew you would not let us down." The human gave a faint nod, his body swaying with exhaustion. The battle was over, but the night was not yet safe. For though the chief had fallen, the raiders still surrounded them, waiting, watching, and the human knew this fight was not yet truly finished. The chief's body lay still on the dirt, his jagged blade slipping. From his hand with a dull clang, the firelight flickered across his fallen form, casting long shadows across the clearing. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. The only sounds were the sisters' sobs and the human's heavy breath. The raiders stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had watched their strongest, their leader, fall before a single human. Whispers ran through their ranks, fear mixing with rage, but none dared step forward. The human stood tall, his blade dripping, his body battered but unbroken. The little alien girl held her sister tight, her tears still flowing, her voice trembling. "We are free. You are free now." Her sister clung back, weak but alive, whispering, "You came for me, you did not leave me." The younger one pressed her forehead to hers, her voice breaking. "I promised I would not, and he fought for us both." The human turned, his eyes softening as he looked at them. His voice, though tired, was steady. "It is not over yet. We must leave this place." The girl nodded, helping her sister to her feet, but the chains still clung to her wrists, heavy and cruel. The human raised his blade, striking once, and the chains shattered, falling into the dirt. The freed sister gasped, staring at him with wide eyes. She whispered, "Why would you do this? Why fight for those who are not yours?" The human met her gaze, his voice low but strong. "Because no one deserves to be left in chains, not while I can stand." The raiders growled, shifting in the shadows, their weapons tight in their hands. But without their chief, their courage faltered. One shouted, "Leave this place, human, or we will tear you apart." The human lifted his blade once more, though his body ached, his voice sharp as steel. "Then come and try." Silence fell, and slowly, one by one, the raiders backed away, slipping into the darkness of the canyon. They vanished like shadows in the mist, unwilling to face the man who had slain their leader. The little girl's heart raced, her voice shaking. "They are leaving, they are gone." The human lowered his blade at last, his chest rising with relief. "For now, yes. But they will not forget tonight." He turned back to the sisters kneeling before them. "You are safe now," he said softly, his hand steady on the younger girl's shoulder. She smiled through her tears, her voice trembling but filled with light. "You did not let me down, I knew you would not." Her sister nodded weakly, her voice breaking. "You gave us back what we lost, you gave us hope." The human looked away for a moment, the weight of the night heavy on his shoulders. He had fought not for glory, not for reward, but because a child's desperate plea had touched his heart. And now, seeing the sisters together, he felt something stir inside him, a bond stronger than any chain. The dawn began to break, pale light spilling over the canyon walls. The fires of the raiders burned low, their smoke curling into the sky. The human rose, offering his hand to the sisters. "Come, let us leave this place. The sun will guide us home." They walked together, the younger girl holding his hand tightly, her sister leaning on the other side. The path was long, but the danger behind them no longer weighed as heavy. Every step forward was a victory, every breath a gift. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide with gratitude. "You are not just a fighter, you are more." He shook his head gently, his voice calm. "I am only human, but sometimes being human is enough." As the canyon faded behind them, the sisters whispered to each other, their voices soft. "He came when no one else would. He fought when all others turned away. He is the reason we are alive." The human walked, in silence, but inside he felt something shift. He had wandered for so long, alone and without purpose. But in answering a child's desperate plea, he had found something greater than himself. Not duty, not destiny, but connection, a bond forged in fire and struggle. At the edge of the forest, the sun rose higher, its light warm across their faces. The younger girl squeezed his hand, whispering, "You will stay with us, won't you?" The human looked down at her, her glowing eyes filled with hope. He did not answer at once, but his silence was not rejection. It was the silence of a man who realized he was no longer walking alone. The sisters leaned against him, tired but alive, and as they walked toward the light of a new day, the human knew one truth for certain. The galaxy might see humans as strangers, wanderers, or even weak. But tonight, one human had proved that strength was not in numbers, not in weapons, but in heart. And in the bond forged between a human and two alien sisters, hope was reborn.